what India alliance are we talking about? You look at West Bengal, Mamta is going to be doing business with CPIM and Congress. क्या बोल रहे हैं हम लोग? तो ये चलने दो इसको, आप चलने दो थोड़ी देर. ये वो क्या कहते हैं, I full stop N full stop D full stop I full stop A Ghamandia alliance anyway. Chaps who are green with envy, Jairam and Jawahar Sarkar का, but don't take them seriously. ये देखो ऐसा है, ये सुबह उठते हैं और तय करते हैं आज किस चीज पे क्रिटिसाइज करना है. That's what I call motivated, illiterate political opposition. Do you know that there were no ladies' toilets in the previous parliament?
The criticism for your government always is कि हर चीज के लिए शिलान्यास के लिए भी प्रधानमंत्री आते हैं.
Whom would you like? Jawahar Sarkar? No, whom would you like? Tell me, Mahua Moitra. Do you know there is a saying in the UN that nothing changes unless there's a crisis? Today there are hundreds of conflicts taking place in the world. Ask yourself one question. Has any one of them gone to the Security Council and got authorization for use of force there? No. Security Council is paralyzed. So the UN needs India. I don't think India needs UN as much. Look, we have a Prime Minister. He had the clout and the outreach to both President Putin and Zelensky. And at one stage, he called both of them saying that I need a cessation of hostilities for a certain number of hours so that we could move the students out. How many other world leaders can do that? 2014 I predicted, 2019 I predicted. We will be at least 10%, if not higher than our 2019 result.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. My guest today is the Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, HardeepSinghPuri. He also holds the portfolio of Housing and Urban Affairs. HardeepSinghPuri was a career diplomat who after superannuation joined politics, the BJP and Mr. Modi's cabinet. He's a member of the upper house of parliament. So our conversation today will be on oil imports, on the issue of Canada-India ties with regard to the Khalistan separatist movement, on smart cities, as he is the longest-serving housing and urban affairs minister in India. What he has to say about criticism of the Central Vista project. So let's get cracking. So thank you so much for being part of the podcast. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. You just back from a visit abroad in which you urged the OPEC countries, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, to show sensitivity to oil-consuming countries, and you said that they should curb output cuts. So, what has been the response to that request of yours?
The conversation I had yesterday at ADIPEC and the day before should be seen in a context. Mm-hmm. What has happened, Smita ji, is that prices have gone up by something like 37% in the last few months, in 3 months alone. Now, it would be wrong for me to say that I make a strong statement and I urge them to show sensitivity and, as you say, ensure that voluntary cuts are not effected. And the market drops. Well, since I made the statement, the market has dropped $5, but that's not because of what I said. I think the context is that there is a overall sense of anxiety in global markets. As I said in one of my interviews, which is perhaps still not been aired, half the world is in recession and the other half is flirting with recession. In other words, if you measure recession in terms of quarter-on-quarter growth, then half the world is actually in recession. And the other half doesn't know whether it's going to be get a better next quarter or a slightly worse next quarter. But more than that, I think there are credible reports that 100 million people have been put back into abject poverty in the context of petrol and diesel prices. In other words, because prices have gone very high, a lot of people have had to fall back on the use of cooking mediums such as wet wood, coal, etc. Now, that's not a very happy situation. Now, clearly, no one as in the consuming countries or the producing countries will doubt the fact that there has been perhaps less investment in the traditional oil and gas, petrol, oil fields as there should be. No one's doubting that because there was talk about green transitioning, it's happening too. But you have to survive the present.
Right.
So the point I was making is that stable markets, which are conducive to both producers and consumers, because it is a given that if the production cost is not controlled. And there's no shortage of oil. By the way, it's not as if there was a shortage of oil, I would say that. No, there was
Production
102 million barrels a day were being produced. Suddenly, 5 million barrels have been taken off the market. Now, once that happens, if you talk to OPEC, they will happily turn around and say, we don't deal with prices. So, to which any person's response is that if you don't deal with prices, you deal with the amount of crude oil you're releasing in the market. And if you curb the amount of oil,
hence you deal with prices.
It will hence, absolutely, it will result in prices rising.
Sure.
I am not concerned about India alone. I think, look, you have a prime minister, we have a prime minister who at the height of the chaos in the market, we were the only country in the world where the price of petrol at the bunk came down by 5% for petrol. Diesel also came down by 0.2%. Why? Because he was able to navigate the way through a cut in central excise duty on 2 occasions, November 21 and May 22. And the BJP-ruled states were able to reduce their VAT. So we have a peculiar situation. One state in the east of India, petrol is 11 rupees 80 paise more expensive than in the rest of India in the BJP states. But my submission to OPEC, first, the secretary in my ministry wrote to the OPEC Secretary General, who's a very thorough professional who also understands it. And we put it down on paper. Then I used my meeting with him and then my other meetings with the ministers, with the companies, etc., to drive home the point. It's not an India specific because look, if you're an oil producer, it's your sovereign right to decide whether you want to extract the oil, you want to sell it, how much you want to sell. But on the other hand, any decision that you take is not without the law of consequences, both intended and unintended. And therefore, that is the context. And I believe Modi ji's India today is also listened to in this context, not only because we are a major consumer. I mean, if India cuts its consumption or reduces imports, there will be very severe consequences.
So what was the formula? Did you sign some secret oil bonds, which we'll get to know a couple of years from now?
No, we don't sign any secret oil bonds. All oil diplomacy is conducted absolutely in the open, in a very transparent manner. And what we do is that I think whether it's the private sector companies or the public sector OMCs, they make it absolutely clear that they will float tenders and they will buy oil for delivery at the port of embarkation. So on that, there's no issue. But my point again is that throughout the several interviews I gave, I said you will be going into organized chaos if you're not sensitive to the concerns of the consuming countries. And quite apart from some countries, slipping into abject poverty, even countries like India, we are doing very well. Modi's India today, I'm not only talking about the G20, but the fact that you are the 5th largest economy on the way to becoming one of the top 3 economies in the world. And, you're on the moon, all over the moon. It's a very high feel-good factor about India, which resonates in international meetings and settings.
Right. You were talking about the economic recession in this. You did give an interview to Bloomberg TV in which you said that increasing crude prices have resulted in 100 million people around the world being taken to abject poverty in the past 18 months. According to you, what would be a reasonable price band?
If you ask me as an individual, as the line minister of a country which is still dependent on 85% for its imports, I should give you a very low figure because that would be ideal. But I'm a realist. I'm a realist. I expect the producing countries also to be compensated for their production and for their resource. Many of them have already undertaken development projects and other major projects for which they need to be paid. So I think a reasonable price is something between, in the current context, it should be lower, but something between 70 and 80, something like 75 or something.
Good.
And that would give the producing countries enough of a return and would also not place, I would say, unmanageable strain on the consuming countries.
So you just back from Dubai. Was there significant blowback regarding Russian oil, import of Russian oil?
No, frankly, I tell you, it's not just Russia. The production cuts have not just come from Russia. The production cuts have also come from one of the other major producers.
No, I'm talking about the imports from Russia.
About India importing?
India
No,
importing.
no, that's not even a talking point.
It's not?
No, it cannot
because
be. No, it cannot be a talking point for the simple reason. Let me, Smitaji, give you the basics on this. Russia produces, if I'm not mistaken, something like 11 million barrels per day. They consume about 4 million barrels. They have to sell the 7. Whom do they sell the 7 million barrels to? Countries like China, India, and other. If India stops buying Russian oil, then we'll have to start buying Middle Eastern oil. The price will go above $200, $250 in that case. That is the issue. So we have to be extremely careful. Yes, the West, in conversations with us off the record and, what you say, they say, please buy Russian oils, but buy it cheap, buy it within the price cap. And we are buying Russian oil within the price cap.
Is that G7 price cap working at all? Or even not just the price cap, because we have 1.57 million barrels per day in September, the PSUs, as compared to 1.44 in August. This I'm giving you the September numbers. So it's not as if the cap is working, the G7
No,
cap.
the cap is not, the quantity has nothing to do with the
Quantity,
cap.
okay.
Quantity has nothing to do with that. If you use as your starting point that India will buy wherever it can get the oil cheapest from. If tomorrow Iraq sells me the oil cheaper or the UAE sells me the oil cheaper, I'll buy from them. You see, there are some kinds of oil which your refineries cannot take because it may be not suited for your refinery. And not everybody can use Russian oil. But I would say that this figure used to be less than 0.2%. When the Russia-Ukraine war started. I'm talking about February 2022. 0.2%. But then they came on the market, they reduced their prices, gave us discounts, we bought more. If the discounts decreased, our quantity also decreased. Look, we have no problems in buying. There's no sanction on Russian oil per se. There is a price cap which says you should buy price within a particular price cap. Then there come problems on differentials on freight, etc. We are very clear. I have made it clear that, A, you will not buy oil from a country which is sanctioned, let's say. And there are 2 countries involved. We are talking to them. One country, the United States, has made some exemptions. We have some money locked up there. It's in Latin America I'm talking about. All right, we are hoping that those things will lift and we can get our money back or get oil in return for that, cargoes. Another country, closer home, they have 45 million barrels on the platforms ready to sell, but till they have sanctions on them, we cannot buy. You see, because we're not only rule-abiding domestically, but also when it comes to our international transaction. Insofar as Russian oil is concerned, I see that figure will go up or down depending on overall availability. Now, for instance, if you have, let's say, I'll give you an example. If you have a discount of $10 and that $10, let's say the international price is X, $10 on that international price will make sense. But if, on the other hand, you've got to get the oil from the Arctic, for instance, and it's a winter and there are cost and insurance rate go up, the economics may not work out. Right. But I have no doubt about the fact that, look, we've been buying 5 million barrels a day from 4 or 5 suppliers, each one of which has been selling us 800,000 barrels a day. Okay? It goes up, it goes down. Some of these countries charge a premium because they say, we want to maintain the equivalence with supplies to Europe. Well, if oil becomes expensive, we buy from elsewhere. It's a simple thing. By the way, we were buying from 27 countries in the world. Today, we buy from 39 countries.
Diversification. Right. What about the controversy about us buying Russian oil in Chinese currency?
No, there was one consignment somewhere. I'm not again, I don't even know what it is. Somebody also asked me the other day, but you are buying in Indian rupees. I said, I hope I buy more in Indian rupees.
That's not really working, is it?
No, not working. It's got off to a start. And it's a start on a small thing. I think it was only 10% or something, a million barrels. I don't even remember the way. It was with the UAE, but we have a payments arrangement with the UAE.
Yeah.
But look, let's make no mistakes. As India grows economically,
we're hungry for oil.
No, number one, and we're going to be one of the top 3 economies in the world. There will be more rupee payments done. We will have the rupee acceptable in other countries for payments. I'm not just talking about oil. But the more important thing is that if anybody is saying, one of your counterparts in an international channel asked me, do you see the de-dollarization of payment? I said, come on. It may be wishful thinking on someone's behalf, but I don't see any de-dollarization taking place because one payment made in the UAE in 10% in rupees is very good. I mean, I'm a proud Indian. I see more Indian. I'd like Indian rupees to be used elsewhere, everywhere if possible. But that
Right.
will take time.
At a seminar, you said, and I quote, global supply chains are realigning. India is emerging as an alternative supply source, given its raw material, low labor costs, growing manufacturing know how, and entrepreneurial ability. You also said that India wants to increase its share of manufacturing and said that India wants to increase the manufacturing in the from 17% GDP to 25%.
Absolutely.
How do you see that happening? Because in the past few decades, this sector has been underperforming as compared to, say, a Korea or a China, the manufacturing sector.
I think, Smitaji, you hit the nail right on the head. Not only in the last few decades, but let's take a snapshot picture of the economy a few decades ago. What is happening? Bulk of your population lives in rural areas, and yet what was and what is the share of agriculture towards your overall GDP? Now, clearly, if your agricultural incomes are not in a position to sustain large segments of your population living in rural areas, what will they do? They will obviously migrate to semi-rural, semi-urban and urban areas. Equally, manufacturing. You can blame if you like, as the Americans often do, and perhaps rightly so. You could blame the Uruguay round of multilateral trade negotiations, the readmission of China into the World Trade Organization, and the fact that, and there's an interesting story I want to tell you, and that, all manufacturing in a way got outsourced to China, and the rest of the world became importers of Chinese products. Now, I'll just give you a little context. When I was a civil servant, I was on a UN funded project on technical assistance for our trade negotiators. I was based in Geneva. It was a UNDP funded project, but it was based in Geneva, and I think it was in UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. If I remember correctly, you also came on a VVIP visit
yes.
when I was there.
When you were there, yes.
Yeah. Now, I just said two things to you. When there was a working party during that period established to deal with issues relating to China's readmission to it was then the GATT. When the negotiations completed, it became the World Trade Organization, and China resumed its membership. It was actually a member of the original GATT also. Everyone, as in everyone, was salivating at the prospects of a large market becoming available to their manufactured products. Okay? I was one of the few people who then said, hey, wait a minute. I mean, I'm a student of the counter narrative. Whenever you sell me something, I always think, iska ulta kya ho sakta hai? What could be true? And I said, just imagine what happens instead of that large market becoming open to your manufactured products. What happens if that large market
becomes a manufacturer
sure. and unleashes its products onto your market? But it was not even that distance which had to be traveled.
This was probably 15 years ago?
I'll tell you, in 86, the Uruguay round was launched. 86, 91 or so, it was concluded. Whenever...
No, this thing about, ulta sochna.
No, exactly. No. I've been doing it all the time. I have a book on it, in fact. But no, let me come to a very simple thing. You didn't even need to do that transformation. All American companies set up shop in China itself.
Yeah.
Hoping to utilize that large market. All right, that large market also grew, but because, when China resumed its membership of the World Trading System, it was still a very, the incomes are not very high. So those American companies which established there started exporting back to there because China suddenly became eligible for the free trade rules that were there. It became eligible for the extension of the MFN, the most favored nation principle, etc. And what happened? Dunia bhar mein manufacturing jo gir gayi. I mean, if you look at Trump's victory last time, I have a book on that because he won in the Rust Belt because they said manufacturing had gone away either because of the North American Free Trade Agreement to Mexico or to wherever, or because of the Uruguay round to the Chinese, etc. Today, under Mr. Modi, you've taken a few very bold steps. One is your agriculture sector you're looking at closely. Otherwise, what is happening? The bulk of your agricultural GDP was coming from services. Now, services, it's very important to have cutting-edge services as we do, and we are very proud of it. But your brick and mortar industry, if it's not there. So two things have happened. The kind of capital expenditure you have, which will produce jobs in the manufacturing sector, 10 lakh crores now. Every few years we double the income. If you look at the infrastructure being built all around, I'll give you a small statistic. The entire cumulative expenditure on all the urban schemes of the previous government, that is from 2004 to 14, was 1,57,000 crores. 10 years. In Modi ji's tenure of 9 years, where the schemes really started in June 2015, which means 8 years, that 1,57,000 crores has become 18 lakh crores. See the multiplier there. So, in every case, capital expenditure has gone up, manufacturing has gone up, manufacturing is going up. Today you're not only making these iPhones, you're exporting them in a big way. Today you become a major automobile manufacturer. And let me come to you, urban transport, metro lines. They barely started when Vajpayee ji was Prime Minister. Today, madam, you have 870 kilometers of functional metro line, another 960 coming up. Within a very short period of time, we will be the second largest metro system in the world. Metro system meaning running metro train. You'll have China, then you have India. We'd overtaken the US, which has about 1,500 kilometers of metro. But it's saturated there. I don't see the Americans producing more metro line. We'll be past Korea and Japan, which are ahead of us now. Civil aviation.
Your earlier portfolio.
Yeah, look at it. If we had not privatized Air India in time, the civil aviation market would have sunk. Today, Indigo is ordering planes left, right, and center. Air India has placed an order. Our airports are being constructed with great speed. 74 in 2014 and another 74 now. You have 148. Jewar is coming up next to Uttar Pradesh. They're going to start doing trial runs, I think, by February of next year. And you'll have today I was reading paper, they've already decided 65 or 70 flights. The number of flights in Indira Gandhi International Airport and Jewar put together will be more flights than in London, Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted put together. So the economy is growing. And within that economy is growing, the manufacturing sector is growing. So when I talked about, 17 to 25%, that was the context.
But before we talk about the Central Vista project, I'd like a short primer to be played. This is for our overseas viewers and listeners who may not know anything about the Central Vista project. This is in the centre of New Delhi. It's a 3.2 kilometre stretch where several government-owned buildings are being redesigned and reconstructed. The Central Vista houses the President's House, Rashtrapati Bhavan, the Parliament Building, the North and South Blocks, which has offices of several ministers and chiefs of armed forces, the National Archives, the Rajpath, now named Kartavya Path, and others. The 6-year-long project, which is currently on, is expected to cost around $2 billion. Let's get into the Central Vista project. It's won praise and criticism from various quarters.
I'm not aware of any criticism other from chaps who are green with envy. Jairam and Jawahar Sarkar. But don't take them seriously.
No, because they say that it's so garish, it's over the budget.
Who's saying it? Over which budget? Now, I want to know which budget. They were once giving the cost of the parliament construction, which is not even the cost of the whole Central Vista put together. That is Kartavya Path, 8 government buildings, vice presidents, the whole system. So don't take them seriously. They say one thing in the morning and another thing in the afternoon. That's what I call motivated, illiterate political opposition. Illiterate. Please underline that word.
But what they are saying is that the BJP wants to erase every bit about what the earlier governments
Madam, there's nothing erasure. All those old buildings are going to remain.
But you pull down so many of them.
We are not pulling a single building down. No single historical building. You're talking here about the governance architecture, which was conceptualized in 1916. Construction began in 1922 and was completed in 1927. Not one of those buildings is coming down. That's part of your historical, cultural, colonial legacy.
The archives building, the
No. These
National
are not the
Museum
old,
and-
not the old building. Nothing is coming down.
Okay.
What is happening? Some of this garage rubbish which was built in the 60s or 70s, like Shastri
Shastri
Bhavan.
Bhavan.
I would invite you there. I started my career in the External Affairs Ministry after my first posting. I was officer on special duty, press relations. That's when I had the privilege of meeting your father and your father-in-law and developed friendships with them. I'll tell you a story.
Your office was on one end of the corridor and the other side was the principal.
Let me explain
Yeah.
to you. There is a magazine, not a magazine, I don't know, weekly or a fortnightly in London called The Spectator.
Yeah, of course.
It had a very famous famous editor called Alexander Chancellor,
Okay.
if I remember his name correctly. Morarji Bhai was the Prime Minister. And we had in the XP division then, I'm sure they have now, we had a visiting journalists program where the division, thanks to the recommendations made by your high commissioners and ambassadors, would draw up a list of distinguished or well-known journalists whom they would invite on a tour of India for a week, 10 days or 15 days. So I was a very new OSD PR. I had just come in from Tokyo, which was our first posting. And I had the privilege of receiving Mr. Alexander Chancellor. He asked for an interview with Morarji Bhai, and I took him to Morarji. And, the UK was subjecting young Indian girls to what was then called the virginity test. Okay. So, he's a foreign journalist. I was a young undersecretary level person, pompously designated as OSD press relations. I took him. Interview went reasonably well. Except at one point he asked him, and Mr. Prime Minister, what are your views on the virginity test? Morarji gave an answer which I thought was brilliant. But it should not have come from the mouth of a Prime Minister. But he gave the answer. And I'm willing to share it with you now.
Tell us what he said.
He's Morarji with a deadpan face glowing for whatever reason. Deadpan face glowing. He said, I would be happy to invoke reciprocity. But we know that your women are not virgins at that age. My God, this was a bombshell. I didn't know what hit me. As soon as we came out of Morarji's office, I went and headed straight to the room of the man who was Joint Secretary to the Prime Minister, Prakash Shah, who was a senior colleague in the Foreign Service. I said, sir, this is what has happened. He said, but didn't you brief the journalist? I said, what do you mean? I had no idea he was going to ask about that. I said, no, I didn't. He said, how well do you know him? I said, I know him very well. I mean, I had lunch with him, dinner. He said, tell him not to use it. I kept quiet. On the way back, I think he was staying in Claridge's Hotel or what, I don't even remember. I told him, I have a request. He said, tell me. I said, look, the interview was brilliant, but don't use that part. And I must say, he was a gentleman.
He did.
He was a gentleman. He said, I won't. Because I'm on your hospitality and I realize the Prime Minister perhaps didn't mean it in that way. But, a journalist is a journalist. Then, when he wrote his piece, he didn't name me. But he said something which has always stuck in my mind till I became Housing and Urban Affairs Minister. He said, I had a very bright Indian Foreign Service officer, I can't name him, who swore me to secrecy on one part of the interview. All I will do to identify him to say that his office was next to a stinking urinal.
Oh.
That is your Shastri Bhavan in 1978.
Yes,
Now look, I'm in Shastri Bhavan now and a housing minister. I'm probably one of the cleaner parts of Shastri Bhavan. But do you think Shastri Bhavan, when it's pulled down, are any of you in the distinguished members of the Fourth Estate or anyone else going to shed a tear because
No.
Shastri Bhavan going to?
Not Shastri.
Or for that matter, Nirman Bhavan. So listen, let's be clear. All these semi-literates who are criticizing us, I'm using the word not to apply to anyone, because if they ask me, you called me a semi-literate, I said, no, I didn't take any names. If you think it fits you, you react. I'm being mischievous. Look, Delhi, you look at how beautiful that parliament. There's a civilizational sweep there. I'll send you, some of these guys have criticized. No, there's too much money has been spent. It should have been spent on COVID. Arey bhai, did we at any stage suggest that because a new parliament is coming, COVID vaccines will not come? Arey 220 crore Modi ji ne vaccine bhi mufat banwa ke distribute karwa di. 80 करोड़ लोगों को दिन का 3 समय का खाना भी खिलवा दिया. They will not
It didn't go
acknowledge.
from the Vista project. That's what you're trying to say.
There are two separate budget heads here.
Yeah.
One, Mr. Mansukh Mandavia has to do. I was a member of the GOM on
Yeah.
health, and the other one is a very different heading. और इतना पैसा खर्च, अरे पता भी है कितना हुआ है?
Yeah, to tell us how
और
much.
कुछ भी नहीं है. Tendered cost का 1200 करोड़ है यार, कुछ भी नहीं है. And then you go on making little changes here and there. Look, this is one of the most cost-effective projects and done in record time.
Is it going to be? Is it going to meet the deadline 2026 or something? All the projects get over?
No, much before that. No.
Before that.
2026 is the delimitation. First of all, I'm not sharing a secret with you. You could not have continued in the current parliament beyond 2026. This is the same argument I make when it comes to the women's reservation bill or it comes to anything else. For a simple reason, I'll tell you why. Because the number of MPs that you're going to have based on the census of 21, which will now hopefully get completed, got delayed due to the COVID, and the delimitation, the number will go up from the current 540 plus to God knows 760.
So the seating.
But there is not enough place.
But what about the other buildings that are coming up out there? They'll all be done in
100%.
within budget. They're not going to go ahead.
No. I don't. I mean, I can
Yeah,
never.
all sarkari projects go over
No,
budget.
not
That's what
Modi ji
I'm-
Sarkar. Both in time and cost overrun, no. They normally do it less than that.
Less than okay.
Yeah.
And the time because
अरे
I know
22 महीने में बना दिया है.
because आप भी उसी शहर में रहते हो जहाँ मैं रहती हूँ. ये राउतला रामा फ्लाईओवर 25 साल लगे एक फ्लाईओवर बनने में.
राव तुलाराम की जो ठेकेदारी थी वो दिल्ली सरकार के पास थी, हमारे पास नहीं थी. दिल्ली सरकार
बड़ी सरकार आए गए.
नहीं.
There was Sheila Dikshit's government, then Aam Aadmi Party.
But I'll tell you no. In Modi ji's government, जब वो शिलान्यास किसी अगर प्रोजेक्ट का होता है तो उद्घाटन भी हो जाता है उन्हीं के समय. I mean, at least I've seen 6 years. I can give you n number of examples of
That
it
they
being
go.
done.
In fact, the criticism for you, for your government always is कि हर चीज के लिए शिलान्यास के लिए भी प्रधानमंत्री आते हैं. उसके बाद one set of road के लिए आते हैं. फिर दूसरे
Whom would you like? Jawahar Sarkar? No, whom would you like? Tell me, Mahua Moitra? No, what exactly are you? I mean, look, let's be clear. Somebody's got the capacity to conceptualize and do that. मैं आपको एक बात बता रहा हूँ, एक चीज़ कोई नोट नहीं करा, जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने पीछे कहा है ना, एक कॉन्फ्रेंस टूरिज्म के. मैं कल एडिपेक होके आया हूँ. कल लौटा मैं रात को. 1.5 दिन था वहाँ पे. जो ये भारत मंडपम बनाया और यशोभूमि बने हैं, they are world-class conference. Why am I talking about one of them? Because I just addressed a meeting of the Capacity Building Commission today on housing and urban affairs this morning. These are world-class facility. And when you go to the parliament also, अभी प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि आप वो छोटे से पार्लियामेंट में रिस्ट्रिक्टेड थे. वो कोई कहता है कि टॉयलेट्स, do you know that there were no ladies toilets in the previous parliament? Do you know? मुझे किसी ने पूछा, अब मैं
You're telling me, sir, we all know about it.
नहीं मेरे को बोला आपको सबसे ज्यादा खुशी क्या? मैंने कहा नहीं, बड़ा बिल्डिंग बन गई और हमारे टाइम पे हो गया. That's not it. I did not have access to clean toilet for the simple reason that building was never built for the number of people who are inside. Because when you're not just the members of parliament, there are security staff, cleaning
visitors,
staff, visitors, caterers. It was today you go in there, you have that feeling of elation. Plus, look at the civilizational sweep, the culture and everything. So ये देखो ऐसा है. ये सुबह उठते हैं और तय करते हैं आज किस चीज़ पे क्रिटिसाइज करना है. वही वन ऑफ दिस जेंटलमैन 2012 में आर्टिकल लिखा था हिंदू में, वी नीड अ न्यू पार्लियामेंट, हाउ लॉन्ग कैन वी गो ऑन दिस. माई एक सीनियर कॉलीग इन द फॉरेन सर्विस व्हेन शी वाज हु बिकेम स्पीकर, शी told her secretary to write to the secretary in the urban development ministry कि please build a new parliament. So they are on record. Then so they will look for this thing. So I don't think that's serious. They are not even serious about it.
Okay.
What they say to me personally is very different from what they say outside.
Yeah. Let me come to this. You were talking about an incident which happened when you were a career diplomat. So let me get to diplomacy. With the United Nations, you worked in various capacities out there. Do you think that today, in 2023, the UN can in any way be representative? Is it in any way representative?
Can it become more representative?
Can it become more because of the North-South divide, the East-West
Smita, it's not
issues?
The North-South divide is not so much. There are two things. That design, that model was conceptualized in 1945 when the Second World War was on. That model is held since 1945. I don't think even the founding fathers of that model thought that it would last that long. There is a provision within the charter of a conference of parties to be called and a new thing to be done. But there is a saying in the UN, which is very well known, that nothing changes unless there's a crisis. Have you reached that point of crisis today? I would think yes. And I'll explain to you why I think we've reached it. Will India benefit? My submission to you is India will benefit with whatever happens. Today, the UN and the Security Council need India. There are very few countries in the world today that have the lifting power of India.
Lifting power.
Lifting power is this. I'm telling you very frankly. I read somewhere in a ANI report or something that there's been a massive earthquake in Turkey. Before I knew what had happened, the Prime Minister had called somebody in Delhi to send relief. India literally lifted tons of relief. Literally went in there, lifted people out of the debris. That is India. And it's happening all along. If people are stranded in as a result of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, 28,000 Indian students, you brought back not just Indian students, you brought back American students.
Yeah, tell me about that experience because we saw you were very active.
No, I'll tell you it's very simple. I got a call. I was somewhere, I think in Assam, attending a meeting, Gati Shakti meeting, and I got a call from at night on my phone. It says no number, unknown or something. I normally don't pick up phones if I don't know the number, but some instinct told me that 9:30, 10 at night, no unknown number, and it persisted. Somebody on the line ki Mani Pradhan Mantri ji baat karenge. And he's direct to the point, no questions of whatever. He basically said that he had decided to send some of his from the council ministers for the evacuation of students stranded in Khadam. It was, I think, less than a minute and a half, the phone call. And next day, the whole plan was unveiled. I was sent to Hungary. Look, the important thing is not that he mounted a rescue effort. The important thing is that he had the clout and the outreach to both the disputants or the warring factions, President Putin and Zelensky. And at one stage, he called both of them saying that I need a cessation of hostilities for a certain number of hours so that we could move the students out. How many other world leaders can do that? So today, in today's multilateral trading system, the world is deeply divided. We all know that. But listen, despite the world being deeply divided, despite all of you, I'm sorry, I'm not mentioning you,
I get that.
Smita, but all the journalists saying, hopeless stars, square brackets, no text will be agreed, will there be a New Delhi declaration? I was one of the few people, maybe because of my friendship with Amitabh and the others, etc. I was 100% sure you will get a declaration.
The G20.
G20. And I remember the Sue Sherpa calling me late in the evening. These are people who have worked with me. Sir, बहुत tension है. मैंने क्या है? And he told me, I said, कल 4 बजे तक हो जाएगा सुबह. वही हुआ. Because when a good effort is made, when a sincere effort is made, when the world knows that the man has put his everything into it, then you can play the unifier in a deeply divided. Now I'm going to conclude by just one thing. Look, the UN today has something called the Security Council. The Security Council's importance lies in the fact that it is the only designated agency in the world which has the authority and the power to make a determination on whether there is a threat to peace and security. Because if the Security Council decides that there is a threat to peace and security, Security Council can authorize countermeasures. Use of whatever means necessary, which means you can use force against that. Today, there are hundreds of conflicts taking place in the world. Ask yourself one question. Has any one of them gone to the Security Council and got authorization for use of force there? No. Security Council is paralyzed. Because if 2 members of the Security Council are disputants, Security Council is paralyzed. It happened in Libya, Syria when I was presiding over the Security Council. So the UN is, I shouldn't use strong language on this thing, but it is paralyzed. So today, if you need to get something done, you have to look to people like Mr. Modi. And it's not, don't go by the successful G20, moon landing, etc. But the new India, which is evolving, which is the fifth largest economy, going to be the third largest economy, or in the top three economies, and the rate at which we are going, what I see in the world, look, you are vying for even higher space. That gives you not credibility, it gives you convening power. So the UN needs India. I don't think India needs UN as much.
It's a very interesting point. I mean, basically, if India is not at the table, there is no table. And
No, I wouldn't go. I'll say they are looking for India on the table.
Right.
अच्छा सुनिए, जब ये टर्की में हुआ,
हाँ.
whatever your views on Turkey are, their proclivity to lean towards Pakistan or anything else, but कोई आंखों की शर्म की नाम की चीज होती है ना, या तो आप बोल दो कि मैं पाकिस्तान का हमदर्द हूं, मैं आपसे लेना, छोड़ो भाई. अच्छा, आपके यहाँ कुछ होती है, you're not looking for international assistance. There's a world of difference in what is happening in India. I'm telling you.
Not even one of those delegates, even Turkey, I must say, none of those delegates, after coming here for G20, stopped by in Islamabad on their way back home.
वो भी नहीं किया. मैंने छोड़ा. I'll tell you something. I was with the OPEC.
There was a lot of heartburn because of that.
नहीं, heartburn नहीं है. I would not have wanted to talk about Pakistan, but you brought it up. These are two countries, okay, born from the womb of the same mother. ये तो इतना मानोगी?
Right.
एक कहाँ पहुँच गई है, मून पे पहुँच गई है, and the other one, हमारे पंजाबी में, I don't know, you're a South Indian married to a Punjabi, so you'll understand this, but पंजाबी में क्या कह रहे हैं? और शुक्र है ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ नहीं जुड़े हुए हैं, नहीं सी ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ भी चढ़न नहीं देना सीगा. That's the kind of humor going around on Pakistani chat shows. Look, petrol is selling in Pakistan at 338 rupees a litre.
Yeah.
Okay? Somebody says, यार वो पाकिस्तान की करेंसी बड़ी डिवैल्यू हो गई है, वो हमारे जो मक्का का, हमारे मेज़, कॉर्न का एक्सपोर्ट्स है, they'll become more competitive. और मैंने कहा यार अकल की बात करो, ये कंट्री, ये करेंसी डिवैल्यूएशन तो एक चीज़ है, कंट्री डिवैल्यूएशन बेचारी हो गई, बुरी हालत है. People put off their electricity at 8 o'clock. And what are you doing? All your offices, wherever I go in the country, air conditioning ज़रा ज़्यादा ही है. मैंने तो ओपेक को बोला, मैंने कहा अगर मेरी बात चले ना, मैं एक दिन कह दूं अपने लोगों को, दिन में 20% ऑफ टाइम एयर कंडीशनर बंद करो. मैंने कहा तुम्हारी ओपेक की वैसे ही सेल्स कम हो जाएंगी.
You know, when I first went to Pakistan and I saw those broad roads and I saw the goods on the shelves, I just felt at that time हम रह गए. And then a few years,
कौन से साल की बात है?
I'm talking about the 90s. And then when about 10 years ago, there was a Pakistani journalist who had come to India and he landed in the Delhi airport, and then he said, यार हम लोग जब तुम्हारे airport में पहुंचते हैं ना, और when we see this and when we see this big thing, we feel हम रह गए. And to me it came as a shocker that it's just, 10-15 years, and look at the difference where a Pakistani is admitting, of course will never write about it even though he's a journalist, will never write, but it's true that they just feel that हम रह गए. And now with Chandrayaan saying आटा नहीं है यहाँ पे और वो लोग चांद पे पहुंच गए.
आटा, मैं 84 में मैं पहली बार गया था कराची.
Manishankar Iyer was there at that time.
नहीं, वो शुक्र है, वो money had left by then, वो पार्था was there, but but शुक्र नहीं, I mean is it a joke. But मैं एक बारी अलग से भी गया था. मैं UN में काम करता था, I was on deputation, और मैं ये बात की बात है जो मैंने कराची में उस समय देखा और बाद में जब इस्लामाबाद में देखा, I saw the fault lines. I saw the fault lines even then. You see, a different mix of policies may produce slightly better results, but there's something fundamentally wrong. If you look at the fact that you develop not only your democracy, your traditions, maybe because Vaishali was on this side of pre-partition India, you had republics in the 5th, 6th century BC. Your Indus Valley civilization shows...
They had Takshila, yeah.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is different segments that make for the success of a democracy were put in place in India. वहाँ पे नहीं था. अब वो फौजी कॉर्पोरेशन थी, they were into hair cutting salons, they were into real estate, they were into all that.
Plots.
How can that country take off? And today, such short-sighted policies. So there's no point saying that we are from the same human stock. No, we may have been at some stage, but what is human stock? You take a child, and if the child is not nurtured in your family, but it's nurtured, let's say, in a benign group of, animal farm or somewhere, the characteristics that you'll derive will be from there.
So when you were in these UN postings that you have done, उस time बड़ी लड़ाइयाँ होती होंगी between the Indian delegation and the Pakistani delegation. Did you have these?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Did you have these?
जब हम
Tell us some incident.
No, जब मैं जिनीवा में था तो वो Munir साहब थे. Munir Akram was there, and Munir Akram was a
Akram brothers.
No. Zamir was all right. Zamir was all right, but Munir was he defined his personality in confrontational terms.
Even now he's there as PR.
Possibly,
Yeah.
but Pakistan now doesn't, doesn't matter. But in when I was in New York, I came across a man whom we used to affectionately call Bunter. He's from a family of very famous journalists, the Dawn Group, and he became a friend in the sense he used to say that do you know that up till about 1956, the entire Pakistani cabinet had Indian passports. So I used to also regale him. I said, the first 26 January parade that took place, first or second, I don't know, first, who the invitee was and all that. Very different kind of this thing.
Huh.
He was not into the hostility. So he would love the keema samosas at our place so much. He used to say, "Aapko बुरा तो नहीं लगा मैं किसी दिन फोन करूँ आपके यहाँ और समोसा मैंने कहा जब मर्जी आइए आप." It's a very different experience. But I'll tell you something, individuals can't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Today, the state polity there has chosen to define its personality in a particular way. It's going to take a long ride. Plus, now the differential is too much. I mean, I read somewhere about in what they call, we call it Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which is what it is. The kind of stuff that is happening there, Baluchistan, etc. It's a mess. To put it mildly.
Yeah, even though you've held so many portfolios, मैं बार-बार diplomacy पे ही आती हूँ because my reporting days were when you were a diplomat. So, what do you have to say to this, the recent fracas which is happening, the India-Canada souring of relations? I'm going to, you did say when in one interview, you said that those who condoned the 1985 Kanishka bombing by Khalistan terrorists continue to find sympathizers today. Who did you mean by sympathizers? Did you mean the Canadian government? Did you mean the Prime Minister? Did you mean non-state actors? Who do you think, or where do you lay the blame on, with regard to the Khalistani separatist movement in Canada?
Well, I mean, like two things involved. First of all, I think Arindam, my friend, who's
the spokesperson.
Yeah.
For Ministry of External Affairs.
Arindam and I worked together in New York when I was PR. I think he did a press conference about 45 questions he took and he answered all the supplementaries. So I think the record is very clear. Somehow this fake narrative manufacturing machine that we've got everywhere, some will say India has not made it clear. And India has made it abundantly clear. I think my colleague and friend Mr. Jaishankar has said so many times, भाई अगर तुम्हारे पास कुछ है तो हमसे share करो. But you just can't go on somewhere that I've never heard of something called credible allegation. I mean, there's an allegation. If you got something else, proof, share it with us. Look, I don't want to get into that.
Sure.
What is the cause? That's the External Affairs Ministry and our foreign and security policy people's this thing. But I think increasingly by the day, it's becoming clear that this has been, from the Canadian side, very badly handled.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, what is the crux, that quote of mine that you're mentioning? This is something I tweeted.
Yeah, you've been to the Kanishka.
No, I had gone to the memorial,
Yeah.
Kanishka Memorial. I was a civil aviation minister. I think I'd gone for an ICAO conference, and I went there. So that was a, anniversary of that. What is happening in Punjab today? A lot of our drug, crime, other thing is finding resonance there. Okay, people go there. There are large communities, etc. This is not going to end well. I'm absolutely clear in my mind that today, in an open democracy like India, first of all, I think it's outlandish to make those kind of allegations against it. I've been a professional diplomat. I've had experiences in countries like Sri Lanka, in other UK, etc. I used to tell my friends in London also, look, you are allowing certain people to take advantage of the democratic freedoms that your society offers. And then that democratic freedom is misused for other purposes, okay? I think that realization will begin to dawn on them.
But
They
doesn't
can-
seem to be, na, Hardeep sir.
Give it a little time.
Look at what happened with the Indian High Commissioner in Scotland. He couldn't even
No,
enter
I know
a
Vikram.
Gurdwara.
I know Vikram very well. I spoke to him.
Yeah.
Vikram had actually gone at the invitation of the Gurdwara committee.
Correct, exactly.
And then it's not the Gurdwara committee which stopped him.
No, it's
Two
random.
goons came in from outside.
Yeah.
And today it's a great way to get publicity. I mean, get yourself on TV, sir, and shout this thing, etc., etc. But understand what's happening. Who's most embarrassed? That Gurdwara committee is embarrassed.
Yeah, they came out with a statement.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I read
then
the statement.
Why is the SGPC so hesitant in condemning what happened? Because see, nobody
I don't want
wants.
to comment on the SGPC. You'll have a full story on your hands after that.
Or okay, then what about the other gurdwaras? Who are not willing to condemn it because nobody really wants.
Hold on.
The gurdwaras to come under radical elements.
No. First of all, I think we also make a mistake when we turn around and say that X must condemn, Y must condemn. We don't need to do all that.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is, the Sikh community is not only nationalistic, the
Right.
Sikh community has sacrificed for the country. Total population of the Sikh community would be less than 2%,
Yeah, 1.7. I think.
1.7. And look at the number of a percentage of gallantry awards that they get
Yeah.
and what they've done. So I think it's very wrong to take any one community and say, yeah, you prove you're not an X or that. They're idiots. I mean, let's
So it's a
develop.
law and order problem. It's not anything else. You're saying.
No. I mean, the best thing would happen is somebody told me that they're producing this cuckoo land there. I'm calling it cuckoo land, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they will not allow any Hindus into there. They will not allow any Canadian whites into there. I said cuckoo land then will, submerge itself into higher forms of lunacy. Look, very, very clear. To be patient about these things. And I commend the fact that on our side, we are exercising restraint. And you'll see they'll back off very quickly on this. Because look at what is at stake here.
So I remember those very poignant visuals when you and your colleagues you brought back that you brought those 3 Granth Sahibs on your
From the
on your-
Afghan Saropas, yeah.
in 2021. It was very heart rendering, that humans and the Swarups had to be rescued from Afghanistan at that stage. The Taliban have further imposed more restrictions recently that Hindus and Sikhs, rather all non-Muslims, should not display any religious symbol. They should dress as Muslims. How can we as Indians support Hindus and Sikhs living in that country?
I don't, again, because
Because
of
you're a
this-
Sikh, sir.
No,
and
I'll tell you very
And
simple.
you've been a diplomat and
No,
you're a
yeah,
minister.
but exactly, I would not want to encroach on the turf of a colleague who deals with external affairs. So I won't talk about... Look, any society anywhere in the world, if it is bent on taking any dispensation, taking it back to medievalism or, to those times, contrary, whether it's women's rights, whether it's religious freedoms, etc., leave them alone for a while. I mean, that would be my answer. As far as we are concerned, we've gone out of our way. The holy scriptures, and have we not only brought those back on a subsequent occasion, Naddaji and I were there when others have come. We've rendered all possible assistance to them. But what is happening is that, like these, did you see those that couple of Afghan origin Sikh couple, which who run a very successful restaurant or number of restaurants in London? How these Kukuland people went and damaged their car. They were recently in Delhi on something. These are human stories. We can reach out at a human level. We can help. And I must say full marks to the Government of India and to the Honorable Prime Minister. Wherever Sikhs have felt persecuted, we've always provided them. Plus, take a listing of what the Prime Minister has done for the Sikhs. I mean, I'm talking about, these used to be talking points earlier. Kartarpur Sahib Lenga, the corridor, all the other things, the tax on langar, the blacklist. So it has been non-stop action by the government in favor of all the Sikhs demanded. It's not the Sikhs per se. You're dealing here with misguided people who will distort the narrative and take it in a particular area. I mean, if ask them somewhere, have you worked out your sums? Punjab and the Sikh community, the Sikh kingdoms Rose from where? We are talking from Lahore down to Delhi, from, Shimla, etc. Look at their own actions have reduced it to a minuscule.
Right. You're talking about the various steps which have been taken now as a representative of that minuscule minority. How do you feel when there is foreign media as well as these human rights groups who say that there is persecution, religious discrimination, there is bigotry, there is
Where?
prejudice against minorities in
Where?
India?
Where?
In India.
Where is the minority persecution? I mean, hold on. Now, let me take it step at a time.
Okay, let me give you one example. The United Christian Forum, and I'm quoting their report, they say that in the first 212 days of this year, 525 incidents of violence against Christians have been reported from 23 states in just 8 months. This is what they're saying, and I'm not even getting into what the Muslim forums are saying or what.
I'll tell you
Okay.
something. I don't know about the organization you're naming. You're talking about a country of 1.4 billion people. Okay? I don't even know the X number of incidents which are being referred to or who did it. For every one instance that you can tell, you can cite another 10 in the other direction. It's a large democracy. It's a vocal democracy. If you talk about minority, this thing, Sikhs are feeling persecuted in India. When they are looking for admission or asylum seeking in countries where the persecution of a minority. No, you're in one sense also paying the price at the human rights level. If you can show that you're a persecuted minority, then you get it easier. Yeah, I was born here. I was brought up in India. I've been posted, and if we've not been posted or traveled with my parents, I've been through all countries in the world. I have seen Sikhs in the La Paz Valley doing agricultural work in Bolivia. I have seen Indian communities in Fiji. I have seen them in the US and the UK. This persecution nonsense talk. I had this Canadian Prime Minister who was accompanied by 5 Sikh ministers when he came here. So it was a hilarious discussion at the lunch which PM hosted for Prime Minister Trudeau. One of those ministers saying, see how lucky I am. When I was young, I went to Canada, I became a minister. So I couldn't hold back my sarcasm. I said, listen, I applaud you. I'm so happy you went to Canada and became a minister. I said, by the way, I stayed back in India. I also became a minister. Now, this is absurdity. Now, what are we discussing? All the Prime Minister schemes. And Smitaji, I want to underline all the Prime Minister scheme. Whether it is Ujwala, whether it is Ayushman Bharat. I was once sent to Meerut to hand out the Ayushman Bharat scheme, whereby a family can get 500,000 rupees, 5 lakhs a year, provisioning for medical tests, for medicines, operations, post-operation care. I found it so heartwarming that most of the people whom I had the privilege of handing those cards out to were from a minority community and not my minorities. You can guess. Look, today I see the figures on Ujwala, on Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Is there any discrimination? I mean, you are Smita Prakash, all right? I just happen to know your family. Okay? I think they're Punjabis. Nobody would guess that what your father's name was. He was from the other. Has anybody ever held anything against you? No. I'm a Sikh. I have 2 daughters. One is married to a Tambram. One is married to a foreigner. But Indian culture, they all, I was with when my younger daughter got married, and the Prime Minister was very gracious. He came there. And believe me, this was not rehearsed. I didn't know the Prime Minister was coming. We had issued an invitation. He not only came, as he came, my younger daughter, who studied abroad, she went and touched his feet. So he was a little taken aback. But didn't stop there. My son-in-law, he also stopped and touched her. Then I saw PM's slight smile on his face. He told my younger daughter, कि आपने इनको भी हमारे वो ये सिखा दिया.
संस्कार, हाँ.
So the point is, look, you're a great civilization. This civilization has drawn strength from the fact that we've all coexisted. People from the north, from the south, they've intermarried. And people get surprised when they find out that my wife actually reads Gurmukhi and I don't. And she's a South Indian.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rubbish. So
And
is
she's
so
a diplomat too. So, for viewers and listeners who don't know that, Lakshmi Puri ji, who's a diplomat by her own right and has a phenomenal career too, and married to Hardeep ji. So, next, I think
I
we
am
should
always
have a
known as either as somebody who's married to
like,
Lakshmi or I'm known as the father of my children.
father.
I'm very happy with that. Look, I'm saying this is all nonsense about persecution of minorities. आप देखते जाइए पंजाब की बात करनी है अब क्रिश्चियन कन्वर्जन्स की बात करिए if there was such a persecution, this is a Christian organization.
Right.
Ask them how many people they've converted in Punjab. So look, there is something called motivated, and I come back, semi-literate kind of criticism which comes. Confront them with facts. I have never, no minority community is this thing. And, our policies of from Sarvodaya to Antyodaya take the fruits of development to the farthest point. And that is what Modi ji's India is all about.
Last man standing. Right. So, you were talking about various projects. I must ask you about this Swanidhi scheme, helping the street hawkers, street vendors. You were involved in that scheme too. So, could you just tell me a
I was
little
not
bit about
involved.
that?
I was a very proud participant. Look,
right.
I remember during the pandemic, PM one day was very emotional. That whilst those people who are working in agriculture, they are working off the land with or without the contagion, without the virus spreading, etc. They were still working. They could have something. People who worked in government would get paid their salaries. Someone who was working in the private sector maybe didn't get their salaries or got laid off. But there was one section of people he was very emotional about, was the people who you and I call ready patri wale or the street vendors. They're very different from the others because the others can go to a bank and get a loan. Here are these people who take loans at exorbitant rates from money lenders. Then they have to ply their daily wares and then go and return the money, taking interest at 18%. So he saw how vulnerable they were, and we were instructed to drop a scheme. I'm very happy today. Now we have the benefits of this scheme have reached out to more than 50 lakh street vendors.
Even though COVID is over, that continues.
No, COVID has got nothing to do with it. Now this has become a brilliant scheme for microfinance inclusion. One guy got the Nobel Prize for it, Muhammad Yunus of Bangladesh.
Correct.
But this is the real scheme which we have done. No, it's a very novel scheme. There are two aspects to it which bear underlining. One, you take the individuals concerned who were earlier part of an informal economy, you onboard them, you bring them into the formal economy, you take all their data, you give them a loan of 10,000 rupees without a collateral, by the way. All these loans are without collateral. If he pays it back, he can go back for another loan of 20,000. Pays that back, he can go for the third loan of 50,000. And he or she will also become entitled to becoming beneficiaries of all the other Pradhan Mantri Yojanas. So it's a remarkable thing. By the way, by sheer coincidence, somebody asked me, which is your constituencies? I said, my favorite constituencies is the Swanidhi beneficiaries. I had Arvind Singh with his colleagues there. And thanks to the Prime Minister's scheme, I've got to know these people very well. Some of the things happening. Street vendors' business has come of age. Swiggy and Zomato are tying up with them. So if you one day want to eat a particular kind of chaat or this thing which is available in South Delhi or in Chandni Chowk, it'll be organized.
Okay, they're part of that app and base.
They're part of that app and it's working beautifully.
Amazing. So I'm going to come to your other portfolio, the smart cities thing, the urban portfolio. The smart cities mission, it was launched in 2015. 2017, you are made in charge. What were the objectives then? Where are we today? How many smart cities and how many will be there by 2024, by the end
all
of...
100 by June 2024. The core of the smart city is something called an integrated command and control center. You are using technology to upgrade civic amenities, electricity, water, traffic. So what has happened is that if you go typically into a smart city control and command center, it's like the NASA. There's all these screens, etc. I once went in Madhya Pradesh with the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, and he got onto a mic like this and said, "मैं आपका मुख्यमंत्री शिवराज बोल रहा हूँ." And khadak, throughout the city, it's all connected.
Speakers, okay.
Speakers came up. Look, it's one of the fastest implemented projects in the world. I don't have the exact figures, but I think I do, since I am always...
This wasn't rehearsed, just in case
just
anybody
it couldn't have been
turn
rehearsed, but
around
I've
and
not
say कि
turned around.
आपने सवाल दे दिए
नहीं,
हरदीप
मैंने-
जी को.
I will
None
tell-
of this has been provided,
No,
and he's
I will
come
just-
armed with facts and figures
I
on
have,
his own.
I have these, all the other facts and figures I've reeled off till now
Yeah.
were off my mind, but I wanted the exact figure. I have.
Yeah.
The total scheme is 2,05,000 crores. I don't
Okay.
know, but I'll give you, Cities, 100. Total outlay, I sold you 2.05 lakh crores. I was okay.
Okay.
Total work orders issued, 1.7 lakh, 1 lakh crores across 7,934 projects. Completed 6,069 projects worth 1,10,795 crores. Under implementation, 1,865 projects with 60,250 crores. Look, the bulk of it has been done. Date of completion will be June 24. In other words, you would have a total expenditure of 2 lakh crores. 2 lakh crores is a lot of money in 100 places.
So this metro and all comes under
No,
that?
metro separate. Metro
That's
separate. Metro separate. These are just 100 cities. 90 of them are area-based development, like New Delhi Municipal Corporation.
Okay.
10 of them are what is called greenfield projects, like Naya Raipur, etc. See, when we were drafting the party manifesto in 2014, those of us who were in charge, I was not part of the exercise directly. I was indirectly supplying through Arunji at that time. We had decided then that we use language like we will build 100 new smart cities. We didn't know what it meant. When we got down to it, there was no global experience on what a smart city. It takes time to set up, a special purpose vehicle to get people. And whereas we discovered that you can't have 100 new smart cities, your existing cities needed upgradation and smartification. So we did that. So what happened is, and 90 of them are this thing, and we didn't select the cities. Smitaji, what happened? We asked cities to come up with projects. So there was a capital city mein, har state mein ek, some in the northeast, some places, and then 100 cities were so selected. But they were not selected in one go. The first lot, the scheme started in June 2015. First lot of cities was announced in January 2016. And the last lot was announced in 2018. So, because of COVID, etc. So, many are complete, some are remaining to be complete.
But there are still huge issues like waste management,
No, wait a minute. These are
traffic
separate.
congestion.
No. Those
are real problems.
No, they are problems, but they've got nothing to do with smart cities. Smart cities
shouldn't have those problems.
No, hold on. No? In the smart city, there is no problem. But smart city is not the whole city, na? So what you need to do is to take that and smartify the rest. So now we are going much further. In the next scheme which will come, whether it will be digital, we are still talking about it. And now, of course, you're talking about smart villages, smart districts, etc. It's a separate. These are 190 are designated areas, area-based development around there. By the way, waste management...
So how do you picking up? So you'll pick up only those areas which can be done.
No.
Not must be done.
You're mixing up. Smart cities is one thing. Waste management, I'll tell you. In 2014...
Pollution, waste management, water, health facilities.
So let me take each one of them separately.
Okay.
Very simple. In 2014, of all the kachra that we produced waste, only 14% was processed. In other words, if you produce 100 tons of waste, 76 tons or 86 tons would go into that Ghazipur fill.
Yeah.
Today, 76% is being processed. In other words, in the next 2 years, 100% will be processed. And the big mounds that we have, Ghazipur, they will be bioremediated in the next 2 years. That is the issue. So I can give you separately on...
So is this part of the smart city?
No, these are very separate.
Separate. Okay. We were talking about you being from the minority community, found your way into the civil service. Before
I appeared in an exam here. I didn't find my way in.
Before that,
appeared in an exam.
Before that, you were in Hindu college.
Yeah.
Go on to teaching in Stephens.
Yeah.
So those people who don't know about Hindu and Stephens, why did you go to teach in St. Stephens?
They gave me a job here. Simple. No, I stood first in the university.
You know the rivalry, right?
No, rivalry mein kya bata? I appeared in an interview and the guys in Hindu college, probably they didn't like my whatever. There was no... I was a student of modern Indian history. and there was a teaching job in St. Stephen's College which came. The fact that I belonged to Hindu college and is to debate against them, they didn't hold against me.
They did.
So they gave me a job.
It was which place was nicer? Tell me, Hindu or the
No,
Stephen?
obviously the
I am
college
gonna
I
ask
spent. I
you.
know you're from Hindu college, no?
No, I'm not. I'm not. Neither of them.
No, but I'll tell you something. No, I thought all bright people are from Hindu
Ah,
college.
look at that.
I thought, I had Amitabh Kant, who's a very good friend. He says, he's a great guy, but only probably went to the wrong college.
Huh.
So, look, let's be very clear. Hindu college has got history. It has tradition. Mahatma Gandhi came and lectured there. I'm talking, Hindu college is a very old college also, by the way. It is one of the earliest colleges of Delhi. Actually, they're both top-class institutions, so let me not BS here.
Okay.
I mean, it's a
Why
great
the
privilege.
civil service then? Like, I'll ask you, and why
Lower
the...
middle class citizen और उस समय नौकरियां थी कहाँ?
Huh.
I wanted to be a lawyer. My father made it very clear that he couldn't afford having a briefless lawyer at home. But in retrospect, I don't regret it at all.
Okay.
हमारे यहाँ बड़ी एक चीज़ बताता हूँ, don't get it wrong. जो बहुत लायक बच्चे थे, जिनकी फर्स्ट क्लास आती थी, वो तो IAS ज्वाइन कर लेते थे. जो सेकंड क्लास आते थे, वो इधर उधर चले जाते थे. जिनकी थर्ड डिवीजन आती थी, वो लॉयर बनते थे. और आज मैं उनका नाम नहीं लेना चाहता, बहुत बड़े लॉयर बन गए हैं.
Okay. So now, why did you decide to join politics? Tell me when you...
I didn't decide to join politics. I was always in politics. When I was in college, I was part of the Vidyarthi Parishad. I'm not claiming that this thing. They claim when I won the election of the students' body in Hindu college, ABVP said, "Ye hamara hai." So I have been around with these people. A lot of people who are in authority. One minister, senior minister, asked me, हम सुना करते थे जब आप फॉरेन सर्विस में थे, हमारे लोग आपके यहाँ राया करते थे, आप इनको सबको कब से जानते हैं? तो आई सेड कि ऐसा है कि मेरा तो संबंध बहुत गहरा और बड़ा पुराना है. कब से? Then I told him 1971 or 1971 I was college, I won an election and the ABVP said I was their candidate. He said, मैं तो पैदा नहीं हुआ था. So my association is that old.
So it was a natural progression
It's
to
not
politics?
a natural progression. It never happens like that.
Huh.
When I was in New York, no, in between, I want to admit to you, at sometime around 2008 or so, when I was posted in Delhi, I was Secretary Economic Relations. I wanted to, chuck it up and join politics. And a lot of people discouraged me. Whatever it is, it didn't happen. When I came back, I retired in 2013. I came back. I was ready to fight an election in 2014. They didn't give me a ticket. They thought... Then later on, when I had a lot of things to do in New York. I was in an international think tank. Later on, one day I got a summons from PM once asking me when I would be available. I told him I joined as chairman of RI. As the rest is history.
Right. I have to ask you this before I let you go. You worked with so many prime ministers, in various capacities. Tell me, who did you feel that this man really, he's a prime minister? Did it at any point of time, did you feel that he was not representing the country properly? Or it'll be unfair for me to ask you that?
I think it's unfair. Okay. I think it's unfair. I have worked in the sense what? I mean, I can't say when I was an undersecretary when Indira Ji was the prime minister. I can't say I worked with her. That's wrong. But Narasimha Rao, I was around. Very astute. Very astute.
Yeah. But foreign
No, he was a foreign minister. Bhai.
Yeah.
He was a foreign minister.
Yeah.
And I've known Narasimha Rao because, when he was chief minister of Andhra and my father-in-law was a law secretary in Delhi, they were very close friends.
Right.
And
he was sharp on the uptake as far as foreign policy is concerned.
Very, very sharp.
And with Dr. Manmohan Singh too and Atal Bihari Vajpayee also.
Vajpayee ji, we had a very different relationship.
Correct.
I mean, it was a very different relationship with Vajpayee ji. I mean, I don't think he took us very seriously because he's seen us grow up, etc. No, but all of them had sterling qualities. But I can say one thing, the perceptions were very different. I mean, in Vajpayee ji and even in Narasimha Rao's time, they're staunch on, on the nationalism front.
Yeah. But you were representing India at a time when India was not as powerful as it is today. Like diplomats, I'm thinking today when they represent India,
it's an easier task for them.
It's an easier task.
When they speak on behalf of India, no.
Yeah, people listen, right?
No, but I'll tell you something. In fairness, we've had a tradition of people outside speaking with this thing. I'll tell you, I have an example. I was PR in New York and Advani ji came. And on one particular issue, the then government, which was a non-BJP government, Dr. Manmohan Singh was the president, and Advani ji and the BJP had a very different position. They had a very different position.
Yeah.
So my very energetic deputy, who happened to be my cousin, Manjeev, came running to me, क्या होगा? मैंने क्या होगा यार? I wasn't bothered at all. मैंने कुछ भी नहीं होगा. तुम चूचू क्यों कर रहे हो? Then he was my cousin, Manjeev.
But he was in Nepal, right?
No, he was in Nepal later, but he was my deputy in New York.
Oh, I see.
He was also ambassador, but deputy.
Huh.
So I said, I have no problem. There's no issue involved, etc.
This was Gulf War period.
No,
No.
I'll tell you.
26-11.
No. This was 2012, end of 2012. It was during the GM. Okay? And I was told something, and I think Kamalaji was not well also. So Lakshmi invited them to stay with us. They stayed with us. So staying with us. So I knew. I mean, I've known Advani ji again, like Vajpayee ji. I mean, from the time when I was a student in Delhi University, and between Ashok Saikia and me, we had to decide which one will get the three-wheeler at night or who will go and buy the tickets and delight. So I go back with them at that time. Okay. And one day, and at home, before Advani ji was to speak on the subject, I said कि Advani ji, आपकी ये appointment इस विषय पे आप speech देना चाहेंगे? हाँ, मैं ज़रूर बोलूँगा. So I immediately turned around and said. Then he realized that I was going to be uncomfortable if he had given the party line there. But there was a staunch nationalist. So he said कि आप इसको जो भी आप prepare करवा दीजिए, क्या बोलना है. Very clear signal that... So I told Manjeev, I called him in 2 minutes. I said कि बनवा ला ये speech. He brought the speech. He had the speech ready, all the line. I showed it to Advani ji. He looked at it. He said, हाँ, ठीक है. End of the story.
Amazing.
I mean, it's not what this guy does now, our young dynamic leader. Jab Delhi se, he steps out of the country, he starts bearing. We have never had this tradition. When we are outside the country, we speak for the country.
Yeah.
And if we have differences, and if you find them irreconcilable, maybe you nuance them a bit, but you don't run your country down.
As a diplomat, does it really bother you?
I've got such a thick skin, I get bothered about nothing. I have my young colleagues will tell you that I turn around and say कि यार अच्छा किया, he's made a fool of himself again. इसकी credibility और नीचे जाएगी.
But it's not just him, right? The entire India alliance is not on board when it comes to the Modi government.
What India alliance are we talking about? Today, because of something happened, some arrests happened here and there yesterday. Punjab, they are celebrating the Congress party and the Delhi mein Congress party, because the one chance of one segment of the India alliance was an armed Congress party alliance in Delhi and Punjab. Okay, you look at West Bengal, Mamta is going to be doing business with CPIM and Congress. क्या बोल रहे हैं हम लोग? तो ये चलने दो इसको, आप चलने दो थोड़ी देर. ये वो क्या कहते हैं, I full stop N full stop D full stop I full stop A घमंडिया alliance anyway.
Last question. 2024 आप election लड़ेंगे?
नहीं मैं तो already I'm a member of the Rajya Sabha.
But
I've got 3 years to go, yaar.
You don't want to give... You don't
No,
want to fight
hold on.
Because you know why, sir? I want to ask you about Punjab. I visited Punjab. I was there in Amritsar for 3-4 days, and I saw for myself the situation out there. The youngsters out there, there's literally... Canada जाना है, Australia जाना है. Everybody from your Uber driver to everybody feeling left out.
You know why?
And it's
I did a study, by the way. Last time in Punjab, I spoke to people. If you are barely educated and you do that IELTS or whatever, Angrezi, thodi si bolna, then you go to Canada as truck driver, you get a lot of money. If you are BA, MA, B.Ed, etc., then you get less money. So this is in some ways, the low-skilled manpower of Canada is being met through this. How much more short-sighted can we become? But I can make a prediction today. I mean, I may not be around, but you are still very young. This process of people wanting to go out will reverse. Already doctors going abroad are coming back. Because India is growing. Today, India is a land of opportunity. Why would anybody want to leave India? I know Punjab is a specific case. Because we have not been able, I mean collectively as a political caste. Certainly the BJP is not responsible for this. The drug menace. A lot of people, that terrible nexus between the police and the drug mafias, etc. Do you think a drug menace can grow when you've got synthetic drug factories inside? And you've got people coming and saying, hum nasha se mukti dilwa denge, and all that colorful language which goes with it. Where is the effort? So Punjab, we've lost an entire generation. It's something that we all have to lament collectively and individually. But things will improve. Things will improve. And the pace at which other parties, people are coming towards the BJP, because the BJP is the only one which has the value system on a correct basis. I mean, you are at least grounded in national security, India first, etc. And it's a sensitive border state. I have no doubt that what you're saying is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But this going abroad fetish, whenever I go to Amritsar or Punjab, I go very often, I always tell them, are you sure what they're doing? They say, sir, we are finding out. We're finding out.
Yeah. So you're confident 2024 BJP returns to power?
Confident. I've got all the elections right so far. 2014 I predicted, 2019 I predicted. We will be at least 10%, if not higher than our 2019 result.
Well, on that note, thank you so
Thank
much,
you
sir,
very
for
much.
sparing the time
Thank
and
you.
coming to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste, Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.